Hello and welcome to the news live on Sansad TV at 9 p.m. with me, Bhawna Nayar. Sansad TV wishes all its viewers a very happy Bhai Dooj and Govardhan Puja. And today is also the start of Gujarati New Year. Hope you all are enjoying the festivities. Let's get started with top 5 headlines this Wednesday evening. Rajnath Singh holds talks with his Russian counterpart, warns against using nuclear option in Ukraine conflict. Russian President Putin oversees drills of nuclear forces. Fight on drugs in the country at a critical juncture, says Home Minister Amit Shah at regional meet on drug smuggling and national security in Gandhinagar. Mallikarjun Kharge takes charge as Congress President, thanks party workers for cooperation and support. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak holds first meeting of Cabinet. UK Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt postpones announcement of new economic plan. And devotees throng temples for Govardhan Puja and Bhai Dooj. Day also marks the start of the Gujarati New Year. And now, top 10 flash news doing the rounds across the country and around the world. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to address Chintan Shiva of State Home Ministers on Friday via video conferencing. New British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly calls Foreign Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, discusses bilateral matters and Ukraine conflict. Arvind Kejriwal appeals to centre to include photos of Lakshmi Ganesh on currency notes. Global fight against terrorism cannot be compromised for narrow political games, says India at UNSC. Authorities told to demolish private hospital that allegedly infused sweet lime juice instead of blood platelets in dengue patient. UN Counter-Terrorism Committee meet in Mumbai and Delhi to discuss ways to tackle terrorist groups using internet and online payment mechanisms. White House acknowledges India as a major global exporter of vaccines with incredible manufacturing capacity. Protest at burial place in Mahasamini in northwestern Iran. Activists call for demonstrations to mark 40 days since her death in police custody. Chinese government accused of setting up 2 undeclared police stations in Netherlands. And Virat Kohli back in top 10 in latest ICC T20I batting charts. Surya Kumar Yadav drops to number 3. Virat jumps from 14th to 9th place. And tonight's leading story, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh on Wednesday told his Russian counterpart, Sergei Shoigu, that neither side should consider the nuclear option in the Ukraine conflict. The Defence Ministry said Shoigu briefed Rajnath Singh on the current situation in Ukraine in a phone conversation in which he highlighted concerns about provocations on using dirty bombs. The talks were held at the initiative of the Defence Minister of Russia. Rajnath Singh reiterated that the matter conflict should be resolved through dialogue and diplomacy. The two ministers also discussed bilateral defense cooperation. The conflict has escalated after Russia launched missile attacks targeting several Ukrainian cities in response to a major explosion in Crimea nearly 2 weeks ago. Meanwhile, the Indian embassy in Ukraine has asked Indian nationals to leave the country at the earliest in view of the emerging situation. The Indian embassy in Kiev issued an advisory urging Indian citizens to approach the embassy for guidance and assistance in reaching the border. Indian nationals can also visit the embassy website for available options for crossing the border. Moving ahead, Union Home Minister Amit Shah addressed the regional meeting on drug trafficking and national security in Gandhinagar. He said drugs are working like termites in destroying the young generation of our country. The Home Minister also highlighted the roles of the narcotics trade in funding terrorism. He said the government and all state agencies need to put up a joint fight to keep the young generation safe. Listen in.
ड्रग कानून प्रवर्तन प्रशिक्षणों का एक समान अभ्यासक्रम बनाने का काम एनसीबी ने एक कोर मॉड्यूल और 5 प्रशिक्षण मॉड्यूल बनाए। मुझे लगता है सारे ऑनलाइन मॉड्यूल को सभी राज्यों में अपने नारकोटिक्स कंट्रोल के एजेंसी के लिए उपयोग में लेना चाहिए और समय समय पर ट्रांसफर होते रहते हैं हमारे यहाँ, समय समय पर इसकी ट्रेनिंग की व्यवस्था करनी चाहिए। तो मुझे विश्वास है कि इसका फायदा बहुत होगा।
Moving on to next important news, Prime Minister Modi will address a two-day Chintan Shiva of State Home Ministers in Surajkund in Haryana on Friday through video conferencing. The two-day meeting will be participated by Home Secretaries of States, Director Generals of Police and Director Generals of Central Security Forces. The Chintan Shivir is aimed at imparting a national perspective to matters relating to internal security that the Prime Minister had announced as Panch Pran in his Independence Day speech. And the newly elected Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge has formed a steering committee with 47 members including Sonia Gandhi, Manmohan Singh and Rahul Gandhi. The committee will function in place of the Congress's Working Committee, the highest decision-making body of the party. Kharge has also chaired the meeting of the party's Central Election Committee that discussed names of candidates for Gujarat. Earlier, Mallikarjun Kharge took formal charge as Congress President. The party's Central Election Authority Chief Madhusudan Mistry handed over the election certificate to Kharge. Take a listen.
पुराने अध्यक्षों को याद करते हुए मैं आप सबको भरोसा दिलाता हूं कि अपनी मेहनत से, अपने अनुभव से जो कुछ भी संभव होगा मैं करूंगा, लेकिन आप सबको भी मेरे साथ पूरी ताकत के साथ, लगन के साथ ठहरना होगा, यही मेरा अपील है।
Kharge also paid homage to Mahatma Gandhi at Rajghat. He paid tributes to former Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, Lal Bahadur Shastri, Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi. Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar was on a visit to Punjab on Wednesday. In Amritsar, he visited the Golden Temple where he was warmly received by the head of the Shiromani Gurudwara Prabandhak Committee, Harjinder Singh Dhami. Along with family members, the Vice President offered prayers at the holy Sri Harmandir Sahib. The Vice President also offered devotional service at the Holy Golden Temple. The Vice President shared his message in the Visitor's Book at the Holy Golden Temple. Vice President later visited Jallianwala Bagh, where he paid floral tributes to the martyrs, describing Jallianwala Bagh as a monument of national importance. He said, "It is a reminder of the sacrifice of the martyrs to whom we are eternally indebted." The Vice President and his family members also offered prayers at Sri Durgyana Temple and Sri Ram Tirath. The UN Security Council's Counter-Terrorism Committee will meet in Mumbai and Delhi on Friday and Saturday. Britain's Foreign Minister James Cleverly, Gabon's Foreign Minister Michel Moula Adamo, and foreign ministers of other countries will attend the conference in New Delhi.
The overarching theme of this meeting would be countering the use of new and emerging technologies for terrorist purposes. The meeting will begin with a soft opening session and tribute to the victims of terrorism, in which UNSG's message, along with EM and other ministerial participants.
Indian Ambassador to the United Nations Ruchira Kamboj said the conference will consider tackling the use of internet, new payment systems and drones by terrorists. Take a listen.
Terrorism in all its forms and manifestations constitutes one of the most serious threats to international peace and security, and that any acts of terrorism are criminal and unjustifiable regardless of their motivations, wherever, whenever and by whomsoever committed. The committee is determined to engage with all relevant stakeholders to assist member states in their efforts to address this terrorist threat.
And now let's take a look at other news from across the nation. Envoys of 5 nations presented their credentials to President Draupadi Murmu on Wednesday. Murmu accepted the credentials from High Commissioner of Uganda and ambassadors of Vietnam, Iran, Sweden and Belgium at a ceremony held at Rashtrapati Bhavan. Security forces shot dead a 32-year-old terrorist attempting to infiltrate in Tangdar sector of North Kashmir's Kupwara district. The terrorist was identified as Mohammad Shakur of Sayyidpura in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. China's outgoing ambassador Sun Wedong made a farewell call on Foreign Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar at South Block. Against the backdrop of the military standoff on the line of control, Jaishankar conveyed that the normalization of India-China relations is in the interest of the countries and the region. The outgoing ambassador said a day earlier that it is only natural for the two countries to have differences. India plans to expand its regional satellite navigation system, Navik, in a bid to increase its use in the civilian sector and also by ships and aircraft travelling far from the country's borders. Navik uses 7 satellites to provide real-time positioning and timing services in India and an area extending up to 1,500 kilometers from the country's borders. The National Green Tribunal issued an interim stay on the construction of the Pakro Tiger Safari in Uttarakhand. The NGT took cognizance of a report that claimed at least 600 trees have been illegally cut in Corbett Tiger Reserve of the Kalgar Tiger Reserve Division. Bhai Dooj and Govardhan Puja was celebrated with regional fervour on Wednesday. The President, Vice President, Prime Minister and Speaker of Lok Sabha greeted people on the occasion. Devotees thronged Brij Mandal for Govardhan Puja. Many people celebrated the Govardhan Mountain. Govardhan Parikrama of 7 course or 21 kilometers is said to hold great religious significance. And now news from the world of business and economy. Despite tensions on the border, bilateral trade between India and China continued to expand, with transactions in the first 9 months this year amounting to $103.6 billion. China exports increased by 31%, while India's export declined by 36%. Last year, India-China trade crossed a record $125 billion. Moving on, the Finance Ministry announced that domestic companies can now file their income tax returns for assessment year 2022-23 by 7th of November. Meanwhile, companies subject to transfer pricing norms can file their returns by 30th November. Earlier, the deadline for filing ITRs by businesses had been extended up to 31st October. After a 2-year gap due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Goa is all set to welcome visitors as the international tourist season began, with the first flight landing from Kazakhstan carrying 189 travellers. The tourists were welcomed with traditional brass band performances, with Goa's protocol minister also present on the occasion. Now talking about the Sensex, the BSE Sensex closed below 60,000 mark as stocks declined by 0.5%, while NSE Nifty closed below 18,000 points, down by 0.5%. Nestle India, Hindustan Liver and Bajaj Finserv lost more than 2.5%. And about global markets now. Meanwhile, it was a good day for Asian and European markets as most stocks registered gains of up to 1%. Hang Seng, Kospi, Nikkei 225 all closed with gains of up to 1%. Slipping into a very short break here, lots more coming up on the other side. You stay tuned to Sansad TV for more news.
संसदीय गतिविधियों से जुड़ी हर खबर, संसदीय समितियों पर एक नजर, राष्ट्रपति, उपराष्ट्रपति, प्रधानमंत्री और लोकसभा अध्यक्ष के प्रमुख कार्यक्रम, संसदीय प्रशिक्षण की खबरों का साप्ताहिक ब्यौरा। पार्लियामेंट दिस वीक हर शुक्रवार शाम 6:30 बजे।
Welcome back after the break. You're watching the news and time now for all the updates from the Russia-Ukraine war front that has entered its 9th month. Russia's deputy ambassador to the United Nations repeated claims that Ukraine is preparing to use a radioactive dirty bomb on its territory. It came on a day when Russian President Putin oversaw the country's strategic nuclear forces exercises involving the launch of ballistic and cruise missiles. President Joe Biden warned Russia that any use of tactical nuclear weapon would be an incredibly serious mistake. Asked if Russia is preparing to deploy a dirty bomb under a false flag pretenses, Biden said he has spent a lot of time today talking about that, quote unquote. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has called the Russian allegations on a dirty bomb are transparently false. He said Russia often accuses others for what they intend to do themselves. Ukrainian President Zelensky said the dirty bomb allegation showed Russia was planning such an attack and seeking to blame Kiev. The United States said it will engage with Russia to bring home jailed U.S. basketball star Brittany Griner. A Russian court on Tuesday upheld the 9-year drug sentence. Griner, a two-time Olympic gold medalist, was arrested in February at a Moscow airport a week before Russia sent troops into Ukraine. German president promised Ukraine more weapons to defend itself against Russia. He said the next Mars 2 systems as well as an additional 4 Type 2000 self-propelled howitzers will also be handed over to Ukraine in a timely manner in the next few days. Speakers and members of parliament from around 40 countries gathered in Croatia capital Zagreb to condemn Russia's war in Ukraine. The Crimea, a parliamentary summit, brought together lawmakers from EU and NATO countries to bring to an end Russia's 2014 annexation of Crimea and other Russian-occupied regions of Ukraine. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reported 3 missile and 11 air strikes as well as 25 attacks from multiple launch rocket systems by Russia on Tuesday. A spokesman accused Russia of violating the norms of international humanitarian law and continuing to target critical infrastructure and the homes of the civilian population. And now news from some other parts of the globe. Rishi Sunak named his new cabinet, bringing in people from different wings of the Conservative Party. Sunak removed a dozen members of Truss government but kept several senior figures beside UK Chancellor of the Exchequer Jeremy Hunt, including Foreign Secretary James Cleverly and Defence Secretary Ben Wallace. Facing the opposition during his first Prime Minister's questions, Sunak defended his cabinet choices.
Was his Home Secretary right to resign last week for a breach of security?
Well, he asked about the Home Secretary. The Home Secretary made an error of judgment, but she recognised that. She raised the matter and she accepted her mistake. And that's why I was delighted to welcome back into a united cabinet that brings experience and stability to the heart of government.
And now news coming in from Israel. Israelis are voting on Tuesday for the 5th time in under 4 years. But even as the country remains divided on the ethnic tensions and the conflict with the Palestinians, it is the cost of living crisis that is causing concern among voters. Take a look. For Israelis, the general elections on November 1st will be the 5th in less than 4 years. Steep living costs, aggravated by record inflation, are top priority for the voters, outweighing even issues like the conflict with the Palestinians. Repeated elections have seen only one state budget pass since 2019. It has hampered long-term planning needed to pass reforms to cut costs. Voters fear that a fresh election will do little to improve matters, with low unemployment and robust growth rates that outpace most of the West. Israel's economy is doing well overall. But it is not translating into improving living costs and quality of life for the average Israeli citizen. Methods of determining living cost scale vary, but economists agree that basic items like dairy products, eggs, bread, oil and meat are more expensive than they should be. Israeli prices are 40% higher than in the Eurozone and 17% higher than in the United States. The reasons are monopolies on imports and red tape and protectionist policies for local suppliers. Living costs are top priority for 44% Israeli voters, far more than those who listed diplomacy and security. Both Benjamin Netanyahu's right-wing religious bloc and his rival, centrist Prime Minister Yair Lapid, are promising sweeping measures. Netanyahu is brandishing his economic credentials as a free market champion. Lapid's camp is highlighting moves that his government pushed over the past year to bring food prices down, like agricultural reforms and cutting red tape on food imports. Bureau Report, Sansad TV. And now news from other parts of the world. Heavy rains caused a dramatic landslide that destroyed 12 houses, displacing more than 100 people in Venezuela's capital, Caracas. In the aftermath, Venezuelans were seen retrieving home appliances and other personal belongings among the debris to later abandon the area. Authorities said there are 60 more houses at risk and attributed the landslide to heavy rains caused by tropical wave number 46. Australia's biggest health insurer, Medibank Private, said a cyber hack compromised the data of its nearly 4 million customers as it warned of a $16 million to $22.3 million US hit to a first half earnings. It said all personal and significant amounts of health claims data of all its customers were compromised in the breach reported this month. Medibank covers around 1/6 of Australians. Italy's new Premier, Giorgia Meloni, on Tuesday laid out her government's policy plans. In a speech to Parliament's lower chamber of deputies, Meloni criticized the European Union for not always being ready for challenges, notably the dramatic energy crisis now threatening households and businesses. But she pledged that her 4-day-old right-wing government will stay loyal to EU accords while working for changes to some of them, including on monetary stability. South Korea held Navy Marine Corps combined drills where Air Force and Army troops also participated in a large-scale amphibious landing exercise in Pohang on Wednesday. About 6,000 troops, 40 military vehicles, 10 vessels and 50 aircraft participated in the drills that aim to confirm the Korean military independent landing operation capabilities. The exercise was part of the annual national security training. US President Joe Biden got his updated COVID-19 booster shot on Tuesday as he urged millions of people who have yet to be boosted to do so by Halloween so they can gather safely this holiday season. Biden also called on Congress to provide the funding that his administration has requested to buy additional vaccines, tests, and treatments. Moving on, do you think how will countries and cities work in the future? That is the main topic at this year's Smart Country Convention in Berlin. And the answer is by getting connected. Take a look at this report.
A city made from Lego can seem very efficient. The train is running on time, the wind turbines are churning out clean energy, and all is of course connected. But real cities are quite different, which is why at the Smart Country Convention in Berlin, people are working on developing clever platforms where AI algorithms can use real-time data. The Smart Country Convention is Europe's leading congress for e-government. German company One City has developed a system of near-field communication chips. These chips can be attached to any local council property, like playgrounds, benches, and trees. When the council workers check in to make sure that nothing is broken at the playground, they just need to tap their smartphone to the badge to get the information. Citizens can also touch the button with their private smartphone and, for example, report a faulty street light. Stuttgart-based Violetics has a way to analyze roads. A camera is attached to a car. When the car drives around a city, the camera takes photos of the roads to analyze damage and problems. It is a far faster way to see which roads need to be repaired compared to a council worker writing a report. The Berlin-based startup Urban Energy has a system called Zero C that allows companies to quickly calculate their carbon footprint. The system can analyze the company to identify where the most carbon is emitted. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
And now let's see what's happening in the world of sports. Ireland upset one of the favourites, England, by 5 runs by a Duckworth-Lewis method. England were 105 for 5 in a chase of 158 when the match stopped due to rain. England ended up 6 runs short of the where they needed to be with Duckworth-Lewis application. In its second group match, India will take on the Netherlands at Sydney tomorrow. The world number 1 T20 team, India, is not expected to be troubled much by the number 17 ranked T20 side in the ICC ranking. RB Leipzig earned an impressive 3-2 victory over Real Madrid in the Champions League to inflict the holders' first defeat of the season and flex their muscles ahead of a decisive showdown against Shakhtar Donetsk this week. Juventus knocked out of the Champions League in the group stage for the first time in 9 years. Chelsea, Paris Saint-Germain, Benfica and Borussia Dortmund all secured qualification for the knockout stage. India's HS Prannoy has reached the pre-quarterfinals of the French Open badminton tournament. In the round of 32, Prannoy defeated Darren Louis in 3 games, 21-16, 16-21, 21-16. And with that, it's a wrap of today's bulletin. Stay tuned to Sansad TV for all the latest updates round the clock. Do share your valuable feedback to us on our social media platforms. Thank you for tuning in. Good night. Namaskar.